Well, a very big welcome, and this is the first of our fast 15-minute sessions around Discover You. People have asked for more leadership and personal growth training, and here we've got the platform to do it now. So we're on record. This session here is one that's very dear to my heart, and it uses the frameworks of both the 13 behaviors of trust as well as the 7 habits of highly effective people, so that we can actually achieve what we want in life. And at a very fundamental level, one of the most important things for us as human beings is to feel heard, feel understood. You know, that moment when someone just gets you, it makes all the difference. And if you think about how important that is for you, it means that it's just as fundamentally important for the party on the other side that you're communicating with. So if you've ever felt yourself frustrated because you've got into a conversation and the other person just doesn't get it, and maybe getting irritated or freaked out and just grumpy and frustrated, and perhaps you've even stormed away from a conversation or an argument and just totally losing it. Well, that's normal as a human being. However, it's quite primal. And what we can do is, when we utilize this framework that I'll share with you right now, and we take our deep breaths and so forth, you'll be able to master your ability to communicate with others more effectively than you've ever done. And fascinatingly, you'll be able to achieve one of the basic desires for us as human beings, and that is, in fact, to have our voice heard. And when we master this approach, what you'll find is that you'll be able to then move forward to the next step, which is about achieving your overall outcome, whatever that item goal is that you desire to achieve. And I'm just going to get my slides in the right format so I can see any questions coming through as well. Now, this is quite counterintuitive to get there, because I'm going to ask you to do the opposite of what it is that you desire. So when you want your voice to be heard, you're often talking and the sounds are coming out. Now, the counterintuitive part in this is actually we're not going to say what it is that we want, not up first. In fact, we're going to listen first to what the other party's needs are. And whether that is prior to the conversation or during it, it is the most important step to actually listen first to the needs, desires, wants, and the emotional state of the other party, in order for you then to be prepared to deliver what it is that you need. Now, all of this comes from our frameworks that we've shared before in our training. If you haven't got those there, what I'm going to quickly do is grab this one and drag and drop it into our chat. Well, the system did not like drag and drop in a file, so let's quickly get this to you in attaching the file. So here it is now. It's coming through to you now into the chat that's loading up right now. And you'll be able to open this up and follow along as well. Now, what I'm sharing today is on the basis of the 13 behaviors of trust. And here they are. We've got talk straight, demonstrate respect, create transparency, right wrongs, show loyalty, deliver results, get better, confront reality, clarify expectations, practice accountability, listen first, keep commitments, and extend trust. Now, all these 13, I've got a deep dive available for you on the Do This Too system under our Communicating in a Time of Crisis and Opportunity. Now, what's interesting is we often, in the moment where we want our voice heard, we want to feel understood, we want to jump into things like talk straight, confront the reality, and clarify expectations. Those are the areas that we often, our mind goes to, because we want the other party to just understand us. And Stephen Covey said it very well in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He said that in habit 5, to seek first to understand the other party and then to be understood. That's in habit 5. So we want to jump straight in, often desire, talk straight, confront reality, clarify expectations to the other party. We actually need to do the thing that is the hardest of all. We need to stop and go for listen first, actually seek to understand the other party first before we drive to actually have our voice heard. It's very counterintuitive this moment, especially if you've got something inside you that really needs to be said and you've got that burning desire. It's at that moment, if your emotional state is actually quite high, that's the time when we need to slow things down. In fact, here it is, the brain science. We do a little bit of this from time to time. It's always good to recap this. And if we look at how the brain works and the three brains, remember this area here, we've got our fight or flight, that's the amygdala portion of the brain. That's the unsafe area. We are at rage, we are at fight mode, or we're just completely fleeing, or we may have totally frozen at this point in time. That's the unsafe zone. Then we've got our safety risk, where we've got a high level of emotion, which can be positive or unhelpful emotion. Either way, it's a higher emotion. That will bring the shutter door down and stop you from being in the safe zone, the human or cognitive part of the brain. Now, this is actually where we need to be in order to achieve our ultimate outcome. If we're not in the human cognitive safe calm area of the brain, if we notice that we're actually quite emotionally agitated, that will destroy our ability to actually effectively communicate. In fact, if we think about it this way, when emotion is quite high and we're starting to exude stress upon the body, cortisol will start to kick in, and our cognitive, this prefrontal cortex, this part of the brain, our cognitive ability will start to diminish at the rate of 20% to 40%. It will, like we've been, if you ever had this one, if you've ever been under the influence of alcohol and you've struggled to communicate, well, that's what happens also when cortisol increases. Our ability to communicate and think logically, it goes out the window. So therefore, it requires us to actually slow things down. Breathe, understand, begin with the end in mind. Know that you don't need to win an argument. It's not about winning. It's about thinking win-win, thinking about a win for the other party as what is the win for yourself, what is that end in mind. That it requires both courage to speak up with what your needs are. More importantly, though, is consideration for the other party, so that your mind is positioned in a place to actually seek first to understand the other party before you then move on to be understood. So when we look at the 13 behaviours, these are the ones that I like to stack here when it's really crucial that you need to have your voice heard. It's actually number 11 comes first. Listen first. Now, listening first is both the behaviour of someone else's words, and it is also the planning process before you go into a conversation where you really need to have your voice heard. And the planning process is to think in advance, what is it that the other person may desire? What are their needs? And therefore, if you're thinking, what is the ultimate outcome for that conversation, then prior to actually having the conversation, the listen first activity is also known as consider first. So consider, what does the other party need to think and feel? So think from like an analytical perspective, and feel from an emotional perspective to buy in to what it is that you require. Now, I've got some big yeses on this. I've got some high fives. That's awesome. Thanks very much. It's huge, right, to prepare in advance to think about the other party. Now, when we do this, it actually requires a big chunk of humility to do that. So it takes a lot of maturity to consider the other party first. And then what's important is that you're preparing yourself also to have your voice heard, and doing it in a very respectful way for the other party. Because if you're needing to shift or influence what the other party is, where the state that they're currently in, and if maybe it's a big item, it's really respectful in our approach. Now, often when we're in these scenarios where you need your voice heard and there's some emotion attached to it, it's because you're feeling undervalued, or perhaps the other person has wronged you in some way. Often it comes from simply not speaking up over time, and then things can build up. And so now we're in a position where, we really need our voice heard, but if we blurt it all out over the other party in a very reactionary way, then that will have the other party reeling back. So what do? Well, we slow it down. We consider the other party, especially when we are sharing a scenario where you may feel hurt. then it's important where the way that we speak is that we're positioning our locus of control on ourselves versus placing it on the other party. What do I mean by locus of control? It's about knowing that our response is based on, I'm going to make sure I've got this framework here for you, is our own responsibility. It's a proactive locus versus that of the victim approach, which is placing it on someone else. That is the below the line activity. So when we respond based with I statements. I feel this way. When we take responsibility for our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, our emotions, our behaviors, versus the ineffective approach, which is the victim approach, which is where you say, you made me feel, or you did these things, and it all goes into blame. If you want to own the scenario and have people move with you faster, then it's about being effective and responding proactively from love, where it's like, when this event occurred, I felt this way. And when you share your feelings, how you feel, the other party does not feel attacked or confronted as a result. Oh my goodness, there's only 3 minutes to go. All right. So what I like to do is anytime I'm in whatever the communication situation is, I'm thinking about these 13 behaviors and how I'm going to stack them together. So when I want my voice heard, the first thing I'm doing is reflecting that if it's a in-flow conversation, I'll reflect back what the other person says and feels, and then I will share my strategy or desired approach to go forward, a desired outcome. And then most importantly, I'll then ask the question, what are your thoughts? How do you feel? What do you think? I'll ask some form of question that brings the other party back into, call it, the position of power or decision making. Now, this is really important. If you would like to get your voice heard and achieve whatever the next outcome is, unless you close out with a question that asks them their thoughts, their feelings, their desires. What are the thoughts? What do you think the next step is? How do you feel about that? When you ask that question, it allows you to test to see if the other party is truly on board or not. And if they're not, that's okay. Just go back to the listen first, try and understand their side, then present your thoughts or strategy, and then ask the question again. What do you think? Does that feel good? Like, can we progress? And when you constantly go through that process, you will find that your voice will be heard much faster. Please do remember that when you are sharing your side, talk straight in a very respectful way, and make sure you create transparency so that people truly understand where you come from, and then clarify expectations of where to go ahead. If you would like to learn more about the types of words to use in each of these, and most importantly, the phrases, refer to that PDF that I've just uploaded. I hope you're able to download it. If not, reach out to me and I'll share it with you. And you get to use the language that's in here, things like what to say from my perspective when you're talking straight. Here is the way I see it. Number 11, when you're looking at, listen, first use words like, here they are. From what I understand, what I heard you say, let me bounce it back to you. What else? My intent is to first understand your point of view, then explain my own when you're connecting with someone. So that's a very powerful one, especially if you're leading into it and you're having a conversation, high trust on conversation, especially if there's some emotion involved from your side, is to share, hey, I've got something really to come up. I've got a really important topic to cover. My intent, though, is to first understand your side of things before I then present mine, just to ensure that I want you to know that in this, I'm going to take really great care of you. Well, I kind of feel like I could do half an hour on this one. If you did like this as even a quick starting point, or what are your thoughts? Shall we do more of these 15-minute quick short sessions to give us some ideas and inspirations? We've got 26 people on the line. So they said, let's do some more. I've often found that all of these topics are really deep, but if we can do lots of regular touch points on them, we can improve. Also, what I'll say as we move forward on this, if you've got a specific scenario, you can throw it into the chat, and I'll help you work through the different frameworks to get an understanding as well. Will these be available on the daily updates page? Hey, that's a great idea. We'll definitely be posting them into do this too, and we'll find other ways. Yeah, let's find somewhere where we can post them up. Alpha, definitely. Thank you. MC, yes, a good reminder for us every day. Yeah, indeed. All right, thanks everyone. I will keep it short and sweet. So feel free to hang around and have a chat with each other on the tables. Otherwise, power clap on 3 to finish it off. 1, 2, 3. And thanks. And I think, Ara, that was the power clap right there with the hands. That's awesome. Have a great day, friends. Catch you soon. Have a great weekend too. Bye for now.